Let me tell you something slightly embarrassing. I think that most of us are selling the hard way and we don't even realize it. Now, it's not because we're bad at sales or that we're lazy, but because the way our products and services are actually positioned is forcing us to push way harder than we actually need to. Because we're chasing leads, we're running promotions, we're offering discounts, and we're constantly trying to generate interest. The moment we stop doing all of that, we know our growth slows down, or honestly, it even stops. So naturally, we want to have customers coming to us. We want those conversations to feel better, and they do when buyers show up and they're aware of a problem. Or we want prospects that already understand that there's something wrong and they're actively looking for that solution. And honestly, between you and me, we want our demand to feel stable instead of it being forced. So if you're feeling the same way about all of this, about the gap between where you are and where you want to be, it's really coming down to one idea: push products versus pull products. A push product requires demand to be created. The customers are not urgently looking, so your marketing and sales must persuade them to care. Think about heavy ad campaigns, constant outreach, pressure, high sales closing tactics that you see. We all know, we've all seen it. But pull products, on the other hand, are capturing demand that already exists. So your customers are actively searching for a solution. They recognize the pain that they're in and they want it solved. So your role is not to convince them that a problem exists. Instead, your role is to position yourself and your product as the obvious choice. So now, if you're wondering, well, which is better, push or pull? Well, here's the answer. It's pull, right? You want customers coming to you, obviously. So this is what every business should be striving for. Every founder wants demand that feels natural. Every business owner wants marketing that works without that constant pressure. And every sales team wants conversations that begin with interest instead of the usual resistance. So, how the heck do we build something that creates pull in the first place? So that's exactly what I am going to cover today. And if you want to go to the exact instructions, skip to this timestamp in the video. Otherwise, let's go. If you're new to the channel, my name is Alex Dalton. My company Adlius helps Canadian companies take what they already offer in the market and make it easier to buy, harder to ignore, and faster to sell. When this channel hits 1,000 subscribers, we're going to unlock live free consulting on this channel. So if you want that, make sure you like, subscribe, so we can all reach that goal together. Imagine this. You're walking downtown outside in January, and remember, I live in Canada, so it's cold. It's minus 10 degrees outside. You left your coat at home for some reason. Your hands are cold. Your teeth are starting to chatter. You need to get warm right now. So imagine now you walk into a store. At that moment, you're not casually shopping. You're not browsing, and you're not comparing brands for fun. You must get warm. So on the rack, there is a plain black hoodie for $25, and the sign says fleece lined, water resistant, rated to minus 10 degrees C. And on the other rack, there's a hoodie with a large Supreme logo across the front. It costs $200. So in this moment, which one do you buy? Most rational people will grab the plain black hoodie. Why? The problem you're facing is that you're cold. The plain hoodie clearly solves this problem. The features directly connect to your need: warmth, protection, and comfort. This is pull in action. The demand already exists. The pain, in this case the cold, is obvious. And the buyer is actively searching for a solution. The product doesn't need to convince them that you being warm matters. It simply needs to position itself as the obvious choice. Now, let's adjust the scenario. Instead of focusing on warmth, the Supreme hoodie must justify an 8 times higher price. So to do that, it can't rely on the urgency of cold alone. It's going to need to create a totally different kind of demand. Maybe it's selling on identity, status, exclusivity, culture, scarcity. This is where you start to see influencer campaigns come in, limited drops, hype culture, long lines, all of this social proof. In other words, the brand is going to persuade the buyer that the logo itself is carrying value beyond warmth. If the customer's primary need is survival in minus 10 degrees, that persuasion is way harder to do because the hoodie must compete against urgency with aspiration. And that is push. Push products require the business to create that desire, and it's not really tied to immediate necessity. This is where marketing really carries more weight, and branding carries more weight, and storytelling carries more weight. So this doesn't make push bad, it just simply makes it much more context dependent in order to drive a sale. Let me share one more idea to really bring this context home. That is the idea that sometimes the product itself does not need to change. The way that it's framed can completely alter how demand behaves. So consider a pharmaceutical product like Ozempic. And yes, this is top of mind because of the Kurzgesagt video. And if you haven't seen it, I'm definitely linking it down below. So Ozempic was originally developed for managing type 2 diabetes. Its core medical function relates to blood sugar regulation. However, it later became widely known for its weight loss effects. If Ozempic is positioned purely around appearance of the user, then the messaging now leans towards aspiration. Looking slimmer, fitting into different clothes, or just improving your confidence, they're all desirable outcomes overall. However, they're not always urgent. Many people want to lose weight at some point, yet they're just going to delay the action for months or, honestly, even years. So that framing behaves like push. Marketing must persuade people that now is the time to act. It must compete against diets, exercise, fasting, and just general motivation. Conversely, when Ozempic is positioned around health risk reduction, that conversation changes. If a patient is told that they're pre-diabetic, at high risk for cardiovascular disease, or facing increased stroke risk, the urgency increases dramatically, right? Now the problem is not appearance. The problem is long-term health and survival. In that context, the patient is not being convinced that weight loss matters. The patient already understands the stakes. The conversation shifts from persuasion to an obvious solution. This is the key principle that I want you to take away from this video. Pull is not only about product design. Pull is about connecting your offer to a problem that people already feel and are actively trying to solve. When your product is tied to a problem that feels optional, your marketing must create that motivation for someone to buy. But on the other hand, when your product is tied to a problem that feels so urgent, the marketing is capturing buyer intent that already exists. This doesn't mean that you should invent fear or exaggerate consequences. Instead, it really means that you must identify the most urgent and meaningful job that your product is trying to solve. So, for example, a financial advisory firm can position itself around grow your wealth. Well, that framing often behaves like a push. Many people want to grow their wealth, obviously, but they just delay taking action because there's so many other things to deal with. But alternatively, the same firm can position itself around preventing costly tax mistakes before your year-end deadlines. Hey, now that framing introduces urgency tied to a specific trigger event. So the underlying service may not change. However, the perceived necessity is changing. All right, if you want your customers coming to you instead of constantly chasing them, you don't need to rebuild your company from scratch. Instead, you need to adjust how your offer connects to urgency, clarity, and proof. Here are the 3 changes you can make. Step 1, anchor to an urgent trigger. We're not looking for general desire here. Most businesses anchor to broad desires like grow your revenue, improve your brand, get in better shape, be more productive. Now, these sound positive. However, they lack urgency. They can always wait till next month or next quarter or next year. And pull begins when you are tying and attaching your offer to a moment that forces action. A failed audit, a doctor's warning, a payroll error before payday. You get the point here, right? Like these are all very urgent things. When you anchor to a trigger event, the buyer is already moving. Your role shifts from convincing to guiding. So instead of selling general improvement, I want you to sell relief tied to a specific moment or event. Narrow to one buyer and one job. Pull requires very sharp positioning. Since push products try to appeal to a large audience, pull products need to be designed for someone specific. If your offer speaks to different personas and solves 10 different problems, no single buyer is going to feel urgency. So choose one primary buyer, choose one painful job, choose one clear outcome. So let's get back to that hoodie example. The plain black hoodie says, keeps you warm at -10 degrees. The message is so simple and the benefit is obvious. So when your positioning is that clear, your need for persuasion drastically decreases. If you want to go deeper on narrowing your focus, I strongly recommend watching my previous video on the ideal customer profile. That framework really helps you decide who should never enter your pipeline in the first place. Design a fast, visible first win. This is what I love doing in my consulting business. Even when urgency exists, hesitation can return if value feels distant. Pull accelerates when buyers can feel pain relief quickly. You need to answer one simple question. What measurable win can someone experience right away? This could be in the first few minutes, first days, or honestly at most, first few weeks. So this could be giving them like a new benchmark score, workflow improvement, cost saving insight, or a health improvement. So when that first win is clear and visible, your customer's confidence is going to increase. Those sales cycles shorten, like I mentioned. The price resistance decreases. But if that payoff is way down the road or it's abstract, you're going to have to move back to persuasion. So design your offer around the first result, not the long-term promise. Sell that you'll be warm in 10 minutes, not we'll increase your aura around wearing a Supreme hoodie. Most businesses believe they're selling the plain black hoodie. In reality, many are structured more like Supreme. They assume customers already feel urgency. However, those customers may not recognize the problem clearly at all. They may see it as optional. They might delay their purchase. And as a result, the business must run many ads, tons of cold emails, offer discounts, and follow up incessantly. So the moment that effort slows down, revenue is going to slow down. These push products require demand to be created, and customers are not urgently searching. Therefore, you have to persuade them to care. Conversely, when a business solves a problem that customers urgently feel, that dynamic changes. Again, think about emergency plumbing. Think about payroll software needed just before payday. Think about cybersecurity services after a breach. In those cases, the buyer clearly doesn't need convincing that a problem exists. The buyer is looking for immediate relief. Pull products capture demand that already exists where customers recognize the pain. They want it solved. Your role is to make sure your offer is the obvious solution. If this was helpful, subscribe to the channel. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, we begin live free consulting here on YouTube. Cheers.